So money's good for a lot of things, right? Groceries, entertainment, education. These are a few examples. But one other thing you can do with money is use it to vanquish your enemies and wreak vengeance. But we don't see this too often. Or do we? Hey, this is Alex with Guys Can Read, and today I'm talking about Conspiracy by Ryan Holiday, byline Peter Thiel, Hulk Hogan, Gawker, and the Anatomy of Intrigue. In this book report, I'll dig into why I picked up Conspiracy, provide a summary of the book, share some of the craziest moments from the Hogan vs. Gawker trial, talk about Ryan Holiday's writing style, run through a few of my favorite quotes from the book, and finish with a couple ideas on who might and who might not enjoy Conspiracy. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Guys Can Read YouTube channel for more book reports. Let's dive in. So I've been a Ryan Holiday fan since I got exposed to him by way of the Tim Ferriss show in 2014. Holiday came up as sort of a wonderkind. He dropped out of college at 19 to apprentice under the author Robert Greene, who wrote the 48 Laws of Power, and then he went on to become the director of marketing at American Apparel at just age 21. After American Apparel, Holiday really entered into his career as a writer, beginning with Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator, which was published in 2012. Shortly after, Holiday released the first of his books on Stoicism. This book was called The Obstacle is the Way. And Obstacle was what kind of blew up Holiday. It started getting really trendy among certain corners of the NFL, including the Patriots and the Seahawks. And after the success of Obstacle, Ryan Holiday kind of became the Stoicism guy. His next book, Ego is the Enemy, was published in 2016 and was later joined by Stillness is the Key in 2019, Courage is Calling in 2021, and Discipline is Destiny in 2022, along with a handful of other books and journals. I read Obstacle, Ego, and I listened to the audiobook for Stillness, and by that point I knew that if Holiday put out a book, it was going to be pretty good. But in the midst of the Stoicism charge, we get Conspiracy. This was a book published by Holiday in 2018 about the Peter Thiel and Gawker intrigue that I'll relay to you in just a minute. If you don't know who Peter Thiel is, the short of it is that he's very rich and considered to be a visionary in the tech industry. How rich? He's worth just over $10 billion right now in net worth, 225th on Bloomberg's billionaire index as of this writing. As for the visionary part, he's kind of one of the guys in venture capital. He was the first outside money into a small tech company that you might have heard of called Facebook. Yeah, I know it's called Meta now. I don't really care. Now, I worked in tech for the majority of my career up until recently, and I knew the name Peter Thiel, so I decided this book was worth checking out. Conspiracy starts with a rewind to December 19th, 2007. On the website called Valleywag, a Gawker Media company, a writer named Owen Thomas publishes a blog titled Peter Thiel is Totally Gay People. This isn't unusual for Gawker or their portfolio companies who published hits like Elijah Wood, emphatically not a gay, Stubborn Jew rolled by more stubborn Jewier Jew, Andy Dick gets the beatdown we've all craved. It's not that Adam Carolla isn't funny, it's that Adam Carolla is a dumb fuck. Just classy reporting being done here. Thiel's a pretty private person. He doesn't take kindly to this publicity where he was out publicly as gay for the first time. Holiday does make the point, however, that a few of Thiel's friends knew beforehand, before this news became public knowledge for everybody else. As this injustice festers in Thiel's mind, his paradigm shifts, and he begins to view Gawker as a great evil to be stomped out, sometimes referring to them as the MBTO, or Manhattan-based terrorist organization. Enter Mr. A. Mr. A, whose identity was unknown at the time of publishing, but is now known to be an Australian lawyer named Aaron D'Souza, approaches Thiel in 2011 with an idea. Let's create a shell company, hire former investigative reporters and lawyers to find causes of legal action against Gawker. It'll take 3 to 5 years and $10 million. Thiel has thought about this. He says, no, the celebrities have come forward, tried to sue Gawker. It can't be done. But then Mr. A closes the deal by saying, Peter, if everyone thought that way, what would the world look like? And from that point on, Thiel is sold. Mr. A then takes point to protect Thiel's anonymity, meets with a lawyer named Charles Harder from the Los Angeles law firm Wolf Rifkin 1 year later in 2012. Mr. A tells Harder, I've been charged to take down a major media outlet by a group of wealthy individuals who will fund causes of action. Would you be interested? Harder's very interested. They just need to find the right case to break Gawker. On October 4th, 2012, Gawker publishes a blog with the headline, Even for a minute, watching Hulk Hogan have sex in a canopy bed is not safe for work, but watch it anyway. Hulk Hogan, real name Terry Bollea, becomes the linchpin in Mr. A and Charles Harder's strategy. Harder calls Bollea's then lawyer, explaining that he and his backers are willing to help with the case. So fast forward to October 15th, 2012, Harder's on the steps of a circuit court in Pinellas County, Florida, and states that Hogan will be suing Gawker for $100 million. We're off to the races. I won't spoil any of the story beyond that. Frankly, you can Google what went down since it's all a matter of public record now. But you should know it is a very interesting story in of itself. A lot of wins and setbacks for both sides, Gawker and Hulk Hogan, and Peter Thiel and Mr. A and Charles Harder. I will give you a couple highlights, though, beyond the plot summary. In normal trial proceedings, the verdict is an initial ruling, and it can always be appealed to higher courts. Details of payment can change after the fact, whatever. Meaning, had this case been tried in other states, Gawker and Nick Denton could have survived at least until after the appeals had been made and either granted or rejected. But, as always, Florida is built different.
Okay, keep coming back.
Florida requires that a supersedeas bond be posted if you want to appeal a verdict from civil court. The bond amount is equal to the amount of the suit, or $50 million, whichever's lower. Gawker doesn't have $50 million. Peter Thiel and his friends know this. So, they know they don't have to have the final word after the appeals are over to bankrupt Gawker. They just need a jury to side with him once in civil court in Pinellas County, Florida. Sidebar, can you imagine if this case went to the Supreme Court as some big freedom of press thing over a Hulk Hogan sex tape?
Brothers.
Wild. Second highlight I'll share, Gawker doesn't do themselves a lot of favor in the deposition before the trial. But this comment from then editor-in-chief A.J. Delirio, also named in the suit alongside Gawker and Nick Denton, might have been the biggest gaffe of their entire side of the courtroom. A lawyer during deposition asks AJ, "Can you imagine a situation where a celebrity sex tape would not be newsworthy?" Delirio says, "If they were a child." The lawyer, sensing blood in the water, then asks, "Under what age?" To which AJ Delirio says, 4. Seemingly this is a joke, but Holiday makes the point that from the video footage of the deposition and from AJ Delirio's tone of voice while saying it, it definitely doesn't seem like a joke. Which is, of course, damning, because then the headline becomes Gawker promotes child pornography, which you simply do not come back from. I'll share one more story here from the book to disillusion you if you're under the impression that Thiel, Mr. A, and Charles Harder were morally inscrutable and the heroes of this story. In expensive mock juries, it becomes clear to the team that Hogan's story is playing well with one particular type of juror, and that is overweight women. Mr. A tells Holiday, "Most people can't empathize with a sex tape, but overweight women are sensitive about their bodies and feel like they've been bullied on the internet." So the team then proceeds during voir dire or jury selection to try and get as many overweight women onto the jury as possible. And you can make the argument that it's a courtroom. You do whatever you take to win. But at least to me, God, did this feel icky. I did not like this one bit. Holiday writes that during a conspiracy, you have to tear your heart out because you're going to be inflicting harm on somebody else at the end of the day. Obviously, Mr. A, if not the entire group of conspirators, have done that by this point in the story. As good as this story was, I do take a couple of issues with how Holiday decides to tell it. The first of these is that he jumps back and forth between the anatomy of a conspiracy and the story of Thiel and Gawker as an example of a conspiracy very frequently. For example, in Chapter 6, Holiday begins with a segment on how conspiracy will require the hard, unforgiving utilization of power or even violence against other human beings. That's a metal quote. That's cool. And then he pivots right into, okay, so Harder's paralegals in 2012 have collected new evidence. And it's not that the anatomy of a conspiracy stuff is uninteresting to me. I actually really appreciated the point in this chapter specifically how it takes a higher level of resolve to actually execute on a conspiracy versus plan it. It's just that all the jumping back and forth between the anatomy of a conspiracy, the actual conspiracy that's happening in the story, made my head spin a little bit. And honestly, it might not have bothered me as much if it weren't for the constant historical and philosophical quotes and interjections that Holiday makes during the story. The biggest eye roll moment for me comes immediately after a quote from Denton, where he's talking about his extremism regarding informational transparency, saying everybody should air everything out in public. The next paragraph, Ryan Holiday starts with, "There's a story that Herodotus tells in the histories about a war between Sparta and Tegea." This is such a yawn. This is such an enormous yawn. This easily could have been omitted. It's one of many paragraphs in the book, which at least to me didn't add much value. I understand Holiday's inclination to do this since it's worked for him so well in all of his other books. But for this book, where the subject matter is modern events and he is telling a story, but then also layering in these examples, I think the pulling in of these anecdotes hurts more than it helps. The last note I'll make about Holiday's writing of this book is that I actually really enjoyed his thesis throughout the book, which is most definitively highlighted at the beginning and the end. A quote from the beginning: "Perhaps we have too few conspiracies, not too many." I think this is a great take. I don't so much love the, I'm out to end this man's entire career conspiracies, but I do love the idea of using conspiracy to shake up stagnant politics, install really cool and innovative businesses, and generally make the world a better place. Now I want to talk through a few of my favorite quotes from Conspiracy. So the first one comes basically on page 0 of the book. It's from Walker Percy in Lancelot. "I couldn't stand it. I still can't stand it. I can't stand the way things are. I cannot tolerate this age. What is more, I won't. And that was my discovery, that I didn't have to." Come out of the gate swinging, Holiday, way to be about it. My take is that a lot of people live with this sense of helplessness that things can't or won't change. Very few people live with the sense that they actually can go out and make a difference in the world. And I think this quote is a really good rallying cry to do just that. The next quote is a quote from Peter Thiel. He says, "We tend to denounce conspiracy theories because we are skeptical of privileged claims to knowledge and of strong claims of human agency." Facts. Just because you don't think somebody can possess secrets or you don't think anybody can affect a lot of change as an individual, that doesn't mean that they don't. And that's where the conspiracy aspect of this takes hold. Next quote. "When Gawker writers looked at Terry Bollea, they saw not a person, but a character in the game of their digital day-to-day existence. They did not see a man who'd lost nearly everything and had been pushed to his breaking point." This is a really great quote about, I would say, the dangers of consuming tabloid media. In 2024, it's super easy to ingest these stories. We get bombarded with them by all sides, and it kind of turns celebrities into caricatures of humans at some point. So the next time you read headlines like Taylor Swift angry over AI-generated nude photos or John Mulaney checks into rehab, I would urge you to take a few minutes and try to put yourselves into that person's shoes, remembering that celebrities are just humans at the end of the day. And lastly, a second quote from Thiel towards the end of the book. He says, "The idea of a conspiracy is linked with intentionality, with planning, working towards longer-term goals. In a world where you don't have conspiracies, maybe also those things disappear." Pete, say it louder for the people in the back. So who would I recommend Conspiracy to? First off, I would say anybody in the tech or media industries. Thiel is one of tech's most dominant figures, and marinating in kind of his thought process, how he philosophizes, could be beneficial for a lot of folks working in a dynamic and constantly evolving industry like tech is. If you're in media, I think this is a really cool retrospective on what media was like in the early 2000s. I remember myself while I was reading a lot of blog posts from Gawker, ValueAg, Gizmodo, Kotaku, etc. I don't think I realized while I was in it how voyeuristic these things were, but looking back, it is wow, we were in another era of media at that time, and I don't think people would disagree. I'm happy with the direction media has gone in since then, for the most part. The second group of people I'd recommend Conspiracy to includes anybody who enjoyed Holiday's other works, including Obstacle is the Way, or anybody who enjoyed Robert Greene's works, including 48 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of War, and The Art of Seduction. The writing style is very similar, for better or for worse, toggling back and forth between philosophy and then anecdotes and stories to back that philosophy up. Again, I don't think this works in Conspiracy because the story here isn't the philosophy, the story is the story. Now, the people I wouldn't recommend this book to, basically anybody else outside of the groups I just mentioned. This is a pretty niche audience, in my opinion, that would enjoy this book. Ryan Holiday isn't like a Michael Lewis, where he can make narratives like Statistics in Baseball or the Collapse of Wall Street in 2008 interesting enough for your average person. That's no knock on Ryan Holiday. It's just a big compliment to Michael Lewis and his writing. So there you have it. That's my book report on Conspiracy by Ryan Holiday. Thanks as always for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Guys Can Read YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and fill out the Google form if you'd like to join a live book club discussion in your city. I'll see you next time.